Uraraka is most certainly a fan favorite character when it comes to My Hero Academia, and she was designed to be just that from the very beginning. Likeable, as she is of course the heroine or main female lead of the story. With the start of the series and Deku's entry into UA, Uraraka was his very first friend at the school. She saved him from hitting the pavement after he overused his quirk, and even vouched for his entry into the academy when he received no points. She is a sweet and bubbly character with a surprisingly competitive nature at times, a desire to make others smile, and a drive to be a great hero, similar to Deku himself. But what if she didn't? What if Uraraka didn't desire to be a hero, and was instead a villain? Now, first and foremost, like any good hero, a good villain is one of burning convictions and a reason for doing what it is that they do. In the case of Uraraka, her reason for being a villain would be a simple yet effective one: money. One of the most common reasons for anyone to stray from the path of righteousness, even in our world, or actually especially in our world, would be money. And a villainous Uraraka would be no different, as a part of her reasoning for becoming a hero is also monetary gain. Throughout her entire childhood and even now, Uraraka's parents struggled financially, to the point where she was quite perceptive of it despite having only recently manifested her quirk at around 4 or 5 years old. This is something that certainly weighed heavily on her, as despite her quirk being readily equipped to help them with their construction business, they refused to have her do so. In the story proper, she decided to become a hero and eventually be able to help them out, as heroes make quite a bit of capital seeing as they are at the forefront of society and all. But what if things were more pressing? Maybe eviction or an accident on the job made the need for money far more desperate. In that case, several years as a student, then several more as a potential sidekick, only to emerge as an independent hero with a low popularity rank would not be an acceptable course of action. It would just take way too long. And so if Uraraka couldn't help her parents directly, then she would be inadvertently pushed towards doing so indirectly, potentially destroying buildings entirely to create work for her parents. Now, these locations would most likely be in close proximity to their established place of work, making her targets a bit more predictable and dangerous on her end. Luckily for her, however, her quirk Float would be spectacular for leaving the scene of the crime quickly, making her that much harder to apprehend. And honestly, in most cases, as a hero, you probably wouldn't want to catch her. Why? Because Float is an absurdly lethal quirk, one that is for the most part curbed and restrained by the character's heroism and conscience. In the hands of a character without morals, Float is virtually a one-touch killer. Maybe not immediately, but swiftly for sure. Upon closing that distance and making contact, Uraraka can make someone or something weightless by nullifying the effects of gravity on them. From there, she could very easily elevate a person high into the air and release to have them plummet to their death in a matter of seconds. Alternatively, she could have a person float indefinitely, rising further and further into the air. At an altitude of around 15,000 feet and beyond, most people would lose consciousness entirely due to a lack of oxygen and would eventually die. And with no distance or time limit on her quirk, just a weight one, even if a person required little or no air to survive, she could just have them float up to about 62 miles until they end up in space and just continue to float without her intervention. Which is just horrible. Now, mind you, with this villainous continuity, Uraraka would have never undergone any heroic training and thus would have never learned gunhead martial arts, which has been a very useful addition to her toolkit. But arguably, with the capacity to learn that to such an extent so quickly, I'd imagine that she could do the same with another fighting style if given the proper chance. More than that, in relation to her quirk, I believe we have received more than enough cases to conclude that unrestricted quirk usage generally allows for a better grasp of one's abilities. It's to the point where an uncompromising villain can compete and even excel beyond a formally trained hero. so she'd probably end up around a similar place, if not better. Now, if making a person float is too much trouble, making extremely heavy things float and fall would be her best bet. And yes, she does have an upper weight limit to her quirk, but really, if elevated high enough, she wouldn't even need them to be all that heavy, as at a certain height, the velocity to which something would rain down would be devastating and more than compensate for the item's inherent weight. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes in fiction, the more messed up a villain, the better. And so besides the death and damage aspects, I'd like to turn our attention to a means of torture. Let's say, for instance, Uraraka takes a person prisoner. She wants to extract some information out of them or simply just wants them to suffer. Well, her quirk is pretty perfect for that. Make a person float and leave them just like that. At first, it's not much of an issue, but eventually, in a matter of hours, a person would likely undergo something known as space adaptation syndrome, a sort of space sickness that causes nausea, headaches, vomiting, vertigo, lethargy, and general discomfort. Furthermore, they would then experience a slowing of the cardiovascular system, a weakening of the immune system, loss of body mass, difficulty sleeping, decreased production of red blood cells, vision problems, wounds take longer to heal, and plenty more. It is just an onslaught of conditions that all originate from a single touch. Now that is downright diabolical. I think Uraraka would have the potential to be a great villain. Her reasoning would go from just to morally corrupt really fast, and to avoid suspicion and discovery by her parents would only be made to go to even further lengths to keep her secret a secret. But at least then, her ever-growing collection of Jordan sneakers would be justified. But there you have it, friends, Uraraka as a villain. I really hope you enjoyed it. This is still a pretty young series for us on the channel, and like anything else, your support is vital to its continuation. If you want to see more, drop a like and a comment so we know to provide you more. This kind of analysis and contemplative scenario stuff is my bread and butter, so please just give me an excuse to entertain you. And a special thank you goes out to Rare Lambo and Phil Mooch for supporting us over on Patreon. There you may receive access to a bunch of benefits, including exclusive content, artwork, and more. Links in the description. And be sure to subscribe to the channel, because when it comes to bringing you some of the best My Hero Academia content on the platform, Plot Armor has you covered. As always, I am Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.